The slide title says Integration of Yahoo Japan Travel and EQ. The system renewal is not just limited to Yahoo Japan Travel, but a similar site, EQ.com, has been integrated together with Yahoo Japan Travel. Now, my title says Yahoo Japan EQ. So this has to do with the project Yahoo Japan and EQ, both of the companies I belong to, and this I am responsible for this project. And so let me explain what the project was. Now, this is Yahoo, not Yahoo Japan Travel, but EQ.com. Luxury hotels or Japanese inns, reservations are what they do. So the EQ travel site, EQ.com, looks like that. Remember that. And this is the top page, EQ.com so far. And then next is renewed Yahoo Japan Travel top page. EQ.com is this one. This is EQ.com, and this is the renewed new Yahoo Japan Travel. You might think they're similar. We have integrated the systems, and back end and front end both are actually providing two brand services using the same system. Therefore, the designs may be similar, but not exactly the same. So this is side by side, a comparison. So at a glance, it looks kind of similar, but if you look at the details, for example, how the hotels are shown, the design is different, and also the width and the height are different. The logos, of course, the banner contents are different as well. And here, this is the search result page. This is more function-oriented. Therefore, there is not much difference in the user experience in the search area. And this is the smartphone top page, the landing page. So at a glance, they look similar. The design is similar. Is it the same content, just the logos and the colors different? You might think that that's the only difference. No, that's not the case. Yahoo Japan Travel, for example, I will come back to this later, but Yahoo Japan ID can be used for logging in, and EQ has EQ ID, and PayPay can be used in either of the two. So there are differences. Now, this integration project, I am going to go deeper in that. But before doing that, I'd like to cover some things here. First of all, what we are doing, this hotel reservation business or this industry, relatively speaking, digital transformation is more advanced in this industry than others. Recently, for Japanese hotels or inns, people don't really call by phone or go physically to the hotel to make reservations. Basically, hotel reservations are done through the internet, and then it's already made. The reservation is made. Then of course, the reservation system is the front system, but the internal hotel system has to be digitalized, and also there are multiple Yahoo Japan Travel or EQ.com, as well as other online travel agencies. All of the systems need to be digitalized, and they need to be connected using API. And at around 2010, this coordination or linkage was already in place. And you see site controller in the middle of this diagram. Site controller are linked to the online travel agency. It says OTA. The vacancy information is sent, and so inventory is managed in such a fashion. So EQ.com might receive a reservation, and Yahoo Japan Travel will receive a reservation, but there's only one vacant room. You have to, choose. But then, if you cannot do that, there's going to be overbooking. But using this API, the inventories are actually shared, that information is shared, and there's no overbooking happening as a result, and still we can receive reservations. And so this industry is very much digitalized already. And then the two systems have been integrated, and I will go deeper on that. As I said before, this is not just a copy service. User experience-wise, they're quite different. Yahoo Japan users have their own Yahoo Japan experience, and also that's true for ikkyu.com users as well.
ですとか、
For example, marketing system and data analysis, they are integrated as well. So the system integration is done, and after that, Yahoo Japan Travel and ikkyu.com, they have separate data for each of them, but we can have integrated analysis of values, and then we can analyze seasonality. So in terms of business, this is very convenient, and this is beneficial. So I'd like to tell you what happened before that. So this project was completed last year, just a year ago. That time, there was an integration project of the front-end processes, and before that, in 2016, there was the initial one for back-end. In 2016, back-end integration, and 2020 last year, front-end integration was done. So totally integrated last year. So this is back in 2016, Yahoo Japan Travel and ikkyu.com. It's 7 to 8 years ago. You can see the design is very different from the current sites, and they are totally different sites, different looks. In those days, two systems were existing separately, of course. Ikkyu and Yahoo Japan, since the past, used to be linked together. Because of the business relationship, we used to be affiliates. So ikkyu registered hotels can be as an aggregate site and can be transferred as data to Yahoo Japan. So they were associated. However, in the back processes, it was only affiliate, and we used to have two separate systems. So from the site controller, the inventory information about vacancy, and they are synchronized, as I mentioned before. And Yahoo has the inventory system, and ikkyu has the inventory system. So both used to have inventory information. That was 2016. In April 2016, Yahoo Japan, well, right now, Z Holdings, acquired ikkyu. So now that they are integrated within a group, within one group company, we have two separate systems. This is not convenient. We have two sales teams and also development teams, and they have to have an overlapping. So of course, we wanted to integrate those. That was 2015. And up to this point, we were talking about integration in terms of the business management, but there was a very big issue. So when we integrate, which one should be the primary system for the integration? There was a big discussion at that time. There could have been many different methodologies. So one could be a primary, one could be a secondary, and then we can integrate that. Or both of them can be merged equally. That could have been done. That was a discussion in those days. And another discussion of those days is Yahoo Japan Travel had this database inventory system. And in those days, it was just after the launch. So in terms of Yahoo Japan system, before that, Yahoo Japan was a site for the traveling. And they procured empty rooms, and they sold the hotels, and the system was just launched. So suppose the primary becomes ikkyu.com, this new inventory system on Yahoo side, Yahoo Japan side, had to be stopped. And even if we merge everything can be reset. So this was a very big decision to make. As a result, ikkyu became the primary, and the inventory system of Yahoo Japan was to be retired. That was the decision we made. This is a rough picture. For Yahoo Japan Travel, For example, there is a booking from users. At the back end, EQ.com service is running. So it goes to EQ system, and EQ system is not changed continuously. And additionally, they have Yahoo Japan Travel operation. And this is the integration that was done in 2016. So why am I talking about this? This decision making was a very important decision making, actually. As I mentioned before, primary became EQ. Why is that? Because as for the backend processes, EQ had more history, so they had more experience. That is why EQ could take over. That is why we integrated the system onto EQ primary. However, as I mentioned before, well, if we didn't decide whichever one is the primary, the dependency would become very different because we have a lot of different modules and that should depend on each other. And it could be a very complex situation. The system engineers would understand the complexity. And that time, the primary EQ system that's going to exist continually, and Yahoo is going to depend on EQ.com. And because of that, for the total integration, including inventory, accordingly, the integration became very smooth. If we had had a different decision making, last year's integration could not have been happening, or it could have been very difficult. So this is about the back-end process integration, and this is 2021 front-end integration. Back-end system was integrated in 2016, but it's only back-end. The total system was not totally integrated, so we had two systems on EQ side and Yahoo Japan side, and production-related back-end system was consolidated, but user experience and so on was separated into two systems. And last year we integrated this one.
And when did we did that integration into one? Well, you might think, okay, user experience can be integrated as well. No, Yahoo Japan Travel users are there, and of course, Yahoo Japan brand and EQ brand. The expectations of the users are quite different. EQ is more luxury oriented. Non-daily experience is what the users expect from EQ, whereas Yahoo Japan Travel users might be business users or family travelers. In other words, closer to daily experiences is what the users are expecting from Yahoo Japan Travel. So if you just integrate them totally, then for the users, it's not satisfactory or satisfying. And therefore, user experience, user interface, EQ was really good at doing that. But when it comes to brand or the experience of Yahoo Japan, we decided to keep that. And that was a precondition for the integration. And when we did that, there were certain objectives. One key objective that we wanted to achieve through the integration was that when we have two user experiences, there are duplications in development. And when we had this Go to Travel government-sponsored travel encouragement campaign by the government in 2019 to really support the travel or hospitality industries to really stimulate the economy, and we responded to that as well. But we have two separate group sites, and EQ.com can do one thing, but Yahoo Japan Travel cannot do that same thing, and vice versa. So, that kind of situations occurred. And of course, there are certain measures that each of the two want to realize, but sometimes that was quite difficult. We wanted to eliminate such a situation, meaning one system, but having two experiences offered. That was a challenging thing for us to achieve. And so this shows the system integration, but the user experience is being separated between the two. And in terms of system design, we have to integrate the system. So the infrastructure is AWS EQ system. And then, of course, domain names will remain the same as before. And in integrating two systems, one of the key points is that Yahoo Japan Connect or auth provider was what Yahoo Japan was. So we wanted to leverage that, and the privacy policy should be followed. But when the two systems are integrated, Yahoo ID login, Yahoo Japan ID login should be able to be used. And PayPay now EQ is using it, but Yahoo Japan Travel was accepting PayPay, and so microservices was there, and Yahoo Japan Connect access ID was allowed. And so we wanted to really address all these different user experiences that could continue to be offered through Yahoo Japan Travel, but system-wise, it's integrated into the EQ system. So at the end, it looked like this: database, search engine, graphical QL backend integrated as one. And then in the latter half of my talk, I will talk about the front end, which is shown at the top part on this page. And this was one of the key focuses last year: multi-brand, front end, one repository. Now, this project was a major one. And so I'm sure you can sort of imagine by now, but the number of engineers was about 50 to 60, but in about half a year, full integration was possible. Before we embarked on this, we thought it would take a year or so, but once we got started, things progressed very quickly, and we were able to finish in half a year. And the reason was the decision-making that was made in 2016, as I have explained. And this is Yahoo Japan CTO Fujimoto-san's tweet. At the time of the integration, we were discussing OAuth provider and where to switch the routing and so forth. So he was very supportive of the integration, and he celebrated our success. So front end as well as back end integration, there were a lot of challenges to overcome, but the most challenging one was on the front end, multi-brand site. How are we going to manage that? How should we design it and implement it? It was the question. And this is the mock-up, and I'm sure you have seen this. And you might just think, okay, because you've seen the result, but this is without the site. So 2 brand sites. Because this was a project of integrating them, we started by developing a mock-up, and there were 50 to 60 members to this project. So we wanted everybody to be on the same page as to what we're trying to realize. So we did a very thorough job of developing the mock-ups. And as you can see here, they look similar, but there are different components. Maybe you can build this with the same source code, but slightly different. How do you manage that? The front-end people will wonder how that can be or should be realized. And the 2 services, one UJS source code is used in the back, and that actually leads to the 2 different sites. As you can see, the components here were a big problem, actually. Yahoo Japan Travel and EQ.com, from a distance, it might look similar, but if you get a closer look, they're quite different. For example, the hotel card on the left, and the crown is different, and also the way the price information is shown are different. And on the right-hand side, the hotel Yahoo Japan Travel has multiple photos, whereas EQ.com shows just one picture, and that is dependent on the expectation of the users. Yahoo Japan Travel, more business and casual hotels are covered. So the more information, the better. Whereas in the case of EQ.com, it's a luxury-oriented site, so the image is important to really encourage people to want to stay at a hotel like this. So that was the difference. And as I said before, we were using the same source code to realize both. So if we want to do something simple, 2 front ends and then 1 back end and an API for communication, that's an easy way. But if you do that, as I said, go to travel require 2 developments, and one could do something, the other could not do it. We wanted to avoid that. So we wanted to be, or we had to be more innovative. Otherwise, it's going to cause a technical debt afterwards. So backend integration and API, that's easier, relatively speaking, because the dependency is only one way. And EQ.com was actually accepting Yahoo Japan through API. So there was this system integration already on the back end. And so next layer, the front end layer, was really a big challenge. And the result, what did we do? Well, EQ and Yahoo Japan Travel, the multi-brand design system is what we developed. And so that is what we have done. Design system normally is integrating in, it's not really integrating one design for multiple brands, but actually trying to incorporate multiple designs. But rather than that, EQ and Yahoo Japan are 2 different brands, but underneath are common designs. There should be a common design underneath. It does exist, but we wanted to actually make it more clear. So we developed this multi-brand design system.
サイトのブランド
So when it's done, the brand color of the sites are not so difficult. Tailwind CSM theme function was used for us, and so you can change the colors. So the colors are not so different. Rather, for example, multiple pictures and component display, the information is different. That kind of difference is more difficult. Using this multi-system design, we were able to overcome the situation. But in the earlier days, it was not really working well. In the earlier days, well, we wanted this kind of design system, but in those days, after the integration of 2 systems, we had the image, but we didn't know to what extent we can share the same part. So we were not able to have the design system in the initial stage. We didn't have time. As the project is getting to the peak, and we had 30, 40 new engineers, and it was difficult for us to share the same understanding. So at first we wanted to share the implementation, but toward the end, we had more copy and paste. So the same component, so we can copy and paste it. The system is more complex. That was what happened. After the launch, and we were doing development after that, and multiple components were copied and pasted, or maybe it was not copied and pasted. There was no consistency. So that is why we wanted to introduce this design system after the launch. So this design system project with the engineers and designers initiated, and then from the bottom-up approach, we were able to make it. It's not top-down with XD, but we use Figma, and software engineers had discussions to talk about share components or separate components. We had discussions, but before that, with EQ.com designers had a top-down approach. So here we have the top page, and engineers started to code. This was an ordinary approach, but with this approach, the designer has this picture in his mind, but the engineer's implementation, there's a gap in between. For example, the designer wants this image, and he wants these components together here, but on the picture, it's very different. But from the engineer's point of view, the expression is different, but the designer didn't think about that kind of gap difference. So that kind of understanding it was very difficult for them to understand each other. So you have to have a bottom-up approach. Otherwise, with these two sites, it was difficult to absorb the difference. So that is why we migrated into this system. We had a lot of discussions. An external expert was invited, and we did team building. And then the design, the guidelines were documented. So Tomana typography, we started from basics for both of them, and then going into the details, bolt-on calendars, portals, and major components were ready, and hotel cards and text expressions, and also larger components on the design stage system was developed. And now we are referring to the design system to look at components, and component library sometimes is something we can use for implementation. So before design system is there, copy and paste to add components, it's okay, but we used to have two source codes and so on, but we were able to avoid it. So after design system, what happens? Before this conference, I interviewed engineers and designers, and everyone says this. Design systems itself is very important as a deliverable, but rather than that, during the process of design system making, engineers and designers discussed what should be common, what should not be common, and they had repeated discussions. That was very important for them. So that means this was a major project with a lot of people. So common understanding about design was not there. But through this project and through the discussions, they were able to reach a sort of common sense consensus. That was a very big achievement for them. So now this new workflow came naturally. We use Figma for page design, and as in this red part, we shared and recognized between designers and engineers. They had discussions to go to the next stage of implementation. That became a routine for them. So design system development was very good. It was for the integration of Yahoo Japan Travel and EQ.com, but there was a ramification here. EQ.com Furusato taxation is a new service. So we are using EQ.com's design, and we arranged some parts for a new design. And that was in the Yahoo Japan Travel integration. We can arrange the design and using the same or similar components. And then we don't have to have overlapping designs to create some new experience for the users. And after that, design system is only for the design layer. So we wanted to go to the front end technology infrastructure to be upgraded so that we can develop two services. So front end improvement team was formed. So component refactoring, and also right now we are using version 2, but we started version 3 projects. So this team to improve front end technology infrastructure is a different one from the previous one. This is called an enabling team. The user experience of EQ Yahoo Japan Travel, they have a streamer team, and this is a separate team. This is a smaller team with 3-4 people, and this team is responsible for component catalog and also new technology provision. So after integration of the project, this design system and front-end improvement system were implemented. This was not routine work for us, but we reviewed what we were doing to upgrade design work. And we noticed later on, of course, with integration, that's not the end of it. That's the start of the service. So at the time of integration, because you have to combine two different systems, there are a lot of inconvenience. If you don't improve that, and if you just add the features and functionalities, your ideal development environment does not really occur. So you form a team and design system is implemented, and we have a lot more efforts, and we always continuously improved to upgrade our environment. That was important. As a result, Go to Travel started in 2019, and recently, well, a nationwide travel support program. This is like the second Go to Travel approach by the government was initiated. So system integration and front end improvement was done already. So for this new national travel discount program, for Yahoo Japan Travel and EQ.com, we were able to have exactly the same experience for the customers. So we were able to launch exactly the same experience and with the services. So this is the program, the components. You can see the circled part says that National Travel Support Program by government, and you can see the markdown prices here. Additionally, this program, we knew that this is going to increase the traffic, but the infrastructure was ready. The traffic goes up, but because of the consolidation of the system, efficiently we were able to address it without any big failure. In summary, in conclusion, this time, two companies used to have different booking systems, and in 2016 and 2021, we were able to completely integrate both systems. And as a result, we review what we have done. The system integration was successful. Yahoo Japan Travel UX could have been upgraded, and the development efficiency was achieved, and we were able to upgrade to sites more efficiently, as I repeated before. The most important decision making goes back to 7 years ago. The primary system should be EQ.com. That was the very important decision making. It was a very rational decision making. But it's hard because we used to have two different systems for two different companies. So some people might lose their jobs and so on, or suspension of projects. Well, sometimes it's painful. However, system integration is done despite such pains. Otherwise, we were not able to achieve this kind of success if we didn't do it. But after integration, because of the two different systems, well, there are some difficulties. So we have design system and front end improvement project. Continuous improvement is important so that integrated system is constantly reviewed and improved. Thank you very much.
伊藤さん、ありがとう。
Thank you very much, Mr. Ito. From here on, we're going to have a plus talk session. The interviewer will ask some questions to deepen our understanding of the topic. And we would like to entertain questions from the audience as well. If you have a question, please click on the question mark on the bottom right on your screen. And the interviewer is Mr. Tomohiro Ikebe from LINE. Can you introduce yourself, Mr. Ikebe? Yes, I am CTO of LINE. My name is Ikebe. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ikebe, without further ado, what is your impression? Well, long time no see. Yes, it's been a while since I met Mr. Ito. Recently, I used a Yahoo Japan travel service. And I don't know if you read it yesterday or, but the keynote was actually pre-recorded, and we had to be here at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't come from my home so early, so I had to reserve a hotel within a walking distance of this venue. So I used Yahoo Japan Travel service to book a hotel. So it worked for you. No fault, no failure, right? No. EQ and Yahoo Japan Travel, I compared the two, but if it's only for the sake of an early morning start, EQ is not the one because it's a luxury-oriented hotel. So business hotel covered by Yahoo Japan Travel would be more appropriate. Yes, only 5-hour, 6-hour stay, but it was good. But I noticed they're similar in some ways, but they're different. On the back end, however, on the backside, I noticed that, well, you all explained what happened in the past leading up to what you have now. So questions, can I ask questions coming from the audience? The duration of the integration backend and front end, how long did it take? Back in 2016, after the decision making, I'm sure you had difficulties as well. How was it? Well, 1 year for backend, not much time before the launch, maybe half a year, I would say, initially. But Yahoo Japan and EQ.com, we had connections already because of affiliation. Data synchronization system was already there, so we were able to do this integration in half a year or so. But until the front-end integration, it took us a longer time. And we were actually continuously adding APIs over time. So including those efforts, total, I don't know how much total it lasted, but in the past, in 5 to 6 years, we were steadily making some progress. And front end, as I explained, just for the integration part, it took us half a year. Okay. Then organization-wise, there was something that caught my attention. Yahoo Japan design versus EQ.com design. Are there two separate design teams, or is it the same? Well, in having this full-fledged integration, we integrated that team into one. EQ side was to take the lead in development. So Yahoo Japan, we actually had volunteers from Yahoo Japan side to be involved in this integration. Yeah, there were a lot of difficulties as well.
I am in a similar position sometimes, many times. So the primary system, when you join a company and you become the primary, I think it's very difficult in terms of theory. For example, for a long time, EQ was doing longer, so maybe EQ has a mature system. I understand theoretically, but those team members are human and they might have some emotional stuff, so they can't really be convinced. That was my next question. Yes. So for managers, for those higher positions people, I don't know if there is any ideal situation, but what kind of communication do you try to have? Well, when the theory is more important, for example, this is a bottom-up approach, and a lot of people have different opinions, so it's difficult to have a uniform approach. So basically, you have to have a top-down approach. And of course, well, if you have this kind of big command, you cannot really enforce it. So we ask people to raise their hands. If you want to be involved in this project, please raise your hand. You can join this, and or not. Well, you have a different job. You can join. It was very hard. I assume it was. Yes, it was hard.
そうですね。
Okay. Database and search, GraphQL. Why is it there in between? GraphQL. It's equivalent of application server. Front end basically is using Nuxt. single page application is used for the development. So API server that distributes to there, GraphQL is there, and the resolver or the handler is the one that runs the work logic. And search engine and the database sync from the front end. We don't want to treat them separately, so it's one graphic server is there on the back end. So search engine or DB, regardless of which way it says it's sent to, query can be sent out without that knowledge.
何がいいですかね。品質とは
What is quality? What is quality? So what should I answer? That's a hard question. Quality? There are many aspects of quality, but for us, there are two major aspects. This is a hotel booking site, and because of that, well, when you book, well, when it's not actually booked, that's not an acceptable situation. So that kind of quality should be guaranteed. Even if the user interface is cool and easy to use, as a site, it's not complete. So this is a minimum requirement as a booking system. You have to have this quality. You can book the hotel and you can pay for the hotel, and the hotel is surely booked. And then UX and how to discover good hotels. So there are two aspects of quality.
ありました。
Okay. Should I read all the questions? Yeah, the final one is something that is on my mind as well. Design system is developed. What were some of the challenges that the designers had, and how did you resolve that? Designers and engineers, when developing a product, need to or must collaborate with each other. However, simply put, they're not really friendly with each other, frankly. I should be careful in phrasing that, but the way of thinking is, or the logic that they use might be a little different. It depends on the personality, but the education that they have come through are different, and therefore, being on the same page or adjusting to each other is not that easy. What was your experience there? Well, Mr. Ikebe, the things that you expressed didn't really happen at EQ.com. I joined the company, 8 years ago. The design organization and engineering organizations were already integrated at that time. So within one team, designers and PM and engineers are there in one team. So morning meetings, afternoon meetings, they have these meetings, and we make it a mission so that these teams can make their own decisions. So they are used to working together. So basically, they're not unfriendly with each other. It's not us. We don't have that problem either. But design organization, well, if you have separate organizations, maybe communication just will not be so smooth, and there might be some separation. So we wanted to put them together in the same team. But of course, still the processes are different, and therefore, yes, there were issues. And you have to address the issues steadily, thoroughly. As I mentioned in my presentation a little bit, I had somebody who is well-versed in design system coming from the outside, and he was a neutral person. And we had a weekly workshop to explain what is good. Yes, somebody who's neutral is good. If it's somebody coming from one of the two companies, then people will receive that differently. Yes. And we increased the opportunities for communication, and gradually we resolved issues. But we started with this question of what is a design system? Does this really resolve the issue? That kind of questions were where we started. And so people seem to be quite worried. Yes, design system, relatively speaking, engineers like that kind of a topic. Maybe designers are more, skeptical. Isn't our creativity hindered as a result? I think at least in my company that might happen. People who are used to XD, but we changed to Figma. And for the designers, that looks like a jump or a leap. Engineers are like the idea of Figma because it is more convenient for them. again, this external person saying that this is more of a standard these days would help. Okay.
Okay, this might be the last question. So going forward, the future outlook. Well, challenges are never going to disappear. So what are future challenges for you, or in terms of business or development or what you want to do? What about your expectation for the next year? This is a major thing. Yahoo Japan Travel and EQ.com focus on a booking for travel, but travel consists of many different things. So even before booking hotels, you have a lot of plans, and when you actually stay in the hotel, you want to go to different sites. And since we have integrated, we have a lot of customers, we would like to expand the experience for the customers. So that means we need more subsystems. So this reservation booking system can be a platform for account management and new services. And seamlessly, as a platform, you have to be connected to different systems. Otherwise, you have to create 2, 3 different systems. That should be challenging.
他大丈夫です。
Any other questions? Or maybe I think it's about time we should wrap up because I was able to ask the questions I wanted to ask.